of the day. When you get an opportunity in this game, you make a play. The playmakers on three. 1, 2, 3.
Touchdown, Kansas City! The Chiefs are right in the thick of it, baby!
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Defending the Kingdom. Mitch Holthus with you, voice of the Chiefs, along with senior team reporter Matt McMullen. Of course, we're brought to you by Ticketmaster, who could be your new best friends. When you look at the Chiefs' 2023 schedule, both home and away, and the awesome concerts that are lined up here throughout the summer, oh my gosh, Ticketmaster, you just need to check it out and figure out how to experience these great moments. But it really is. I mean, the 2023 schedule's incredible. The best, I think, in the 63-year history of this franchise.
And we're in June now. It's starting to get hot outside. All of a sudden, it's like football. It's not almost here, but we're closer to it than maybe it felt even a few weeks ago. And before we know it, we'll be in St. Joe for training camp. But we're getting closer every single day. So get your tickets while you can.
And by the way, 64th year of the franchise. I want to get that right. I didn't end up doing the math. Speaking of 64 years in the franchise, a bit of a sad time in the Chiefs kingdom because we lost the person that I call the forever queen of the Chiefs kingdom in Norma Hunt's passing. What a remarkable woman in so many ways. Sad, but also the feeling, a heartwarming feeling of thinking of a life well lived and a life that impacted and influenced so many.
What a life,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of what I think the theme has been in the last few days. Remembering Norma is just what an incredible life she had, what an impact she left, and what a foundational figure in the world of sports she was, being right there with Lamar Hunt. Just, looking up some research, not just the AFL-NFL merger, which, again, was transformative when it comes to professional football today, but also Major League Soccer, World Championship Tennis, the North American Soccer League. She just did so much alongside Lamar for the modern-day sports fan. And we'll talk about her a little bit more, but just an incredible person, an incredible woman, so warm and kind with everyone that she met. And I'm so glad, of course, she went to every single Super Bowl, right? I'm so glad these last few that she went to got to see the Chiefs raise the Lombardi Trophy.
And those 3 times she got to witness the Chiefs winning the Lamar Hunt Trophy as the AFC champions after never winning it, because when the Chiefs won it, it was the AFL back before. I'll just reiterate what I wrote on Twitter, and I mentioned that this was an amazing woman, Norma Hunt, an amazing woman of grace, charm, wisdom, and so much more. A Proverbs 31 woman. You can look up that proverb, especially the last verses, and you know why I put it in here. I'll just let you look it up. But prayers for comfort for the entire Hunt family. An incredible person. I shall miss her very much, that smile and that spirit.
And the legacy that she's leaving is immense. One really cool thing in 2021 that was created was the Norma Hunt Training Camp Fellowship Program. And what that does is it essentially provides a pathway for women to find opportunities and to gain experience in the front office of a National Football League team. Provides networking opportunities and experience in pro and college scouting, free agent tryouts, salary cap management and contracts, team operations, player engagement, and other departments within football operations. So her legacy in so many ways is going to live on forever. But specifically, it's a very cool program that the Chiefs started a few years ago that her name is on. And for generations of women who are going to find opportunities in the NFL and go on to do great things in the NFL, it may just start with this Norma Hunt Training Camp Fellowship Program. So pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. Ashley Smith was in that program, Trey Smith's sister, who I think will be NFL commissioner someday. She is so awesome. But the fact that she could flourish within that initiative from Norma Hunt. The other thing was I remember the NFL kind of anthology of A Lifetime of Sundays when they talked about the first ladies of football. But she was also an entrepreneur. I think it's underrated about the impact of Norma Hunt's life because she was so humble, much like her husband. But I remember I had these long talks with her about her vineyard. She had a vineyard in Northern California, Napa Valley, and the terrible wildfires that almost struck there. But just her business mind, too. And then I also remember just how empathetic and encouraging she was with everybody within the organization. She was always there to encourage and just left an impact not only in this franchise and the National Football League, but really all of professional football.
And it's so cool to think about what she saw and the progress that she saw in professional sports. The fact that she was with Lamar in the very early days of the American Football League, the early days of the Dallas Texans and then the Kansas City Chiefs, and to see how popular the game became in the decades that followed, just to be at the Super Bowl this past year and to see how it is one of the largest events in the world. 1 billion people are watching this thing, and she really saw it in its infancy and when it first began. The NFL was around for a long time, but still, like, if you're looking at the history of the National Football League, it was in that era, the early 60s, that football really started to take root in America. And the AFL was a big part of that, obviously, and just the impact and the role that she had in making the game that we love what it is today is pretty profound.
And then to just wrap this up in this part of the podcast is the fact that she saw those 2 Super Bowl championships in 54 and 57, of course, saw 4, but then the 3 Lamar Hunt Trophy championships. But then I love that you mentioned the initiative she put together, because she saw it also the NFL open up for women. And in fact, that's exploded with the opportunity for women over the last 5 years in specific, for opportunities all throughout the National Football League at all layers, whether it's league-wide or with individual franchises. So again, we shall miss her very, very much. A dear woman of grace, spectacular. What a life in Norma Hunt. Okay, when you came back, I think I got this close. Some people have said your German's okay, needs a little improvement.
I don't know who told you that.
Yeah, willkommen Baruch. I say Baruch, willkommen, which is welcome back. But you got to take the trip to Frankfurt. I saw Dante Hall earlier this week at the Trent Green fundraiser for Ronald McDonald House Charities, and his face lit up when I said, hey, you and Matt got to go, and he was telling me about it. So how was your trip to Frankfurt?
It was unbelievable. It was, frankly, one of the highlights of my career. I knew it would be fun when we were planning it and we were going to go there, but I also really didn't know what to expect. For one thing, I had never represented the team abroad. I know what to expect in the States, right? Particularly in the middle of Chiefs Kingdom. I know what to expect from our fans, but I didn't know what to expect from Chiefs fans in Frankfurt, and I was frankly blown away by it. It was amazing. The passion and the energy for our football team 5,000 miles away in Frankfurt is real. And you and I, we're technically part of the marketing team, right? And we know that the international endeavors are important. We're working on them. It's a real thing. But when you really go over there and see it, and you meet with people who have never been to the United States, don't know a lot of English, but they love the Kansas City Chiefs, and all they want to do is talk football with you, it's a really cool and special thing, because the Chiefs are so special to us, and to see it matter to someone who grew up in an entirely different lifestyle and an entirely different culture in a place so far away, it's just very cool. So it was an amazing experience, and also visiting a few military bases over there, seeing some of our nation's heroes stationed overseas was a real honor to bring them a slice of home so far away. So I could talk about it forever. I brought some things here to show you, though.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you didn't watch the last episode, basically what I did there, we went to these military bases, but we also had a party in downtown Frankfurt on a rooftop. And imagine if you go to training camp and all the activations that are around, you can see like a locker, and see what the locker looks like on game day, but also play some games. Imagine that, but just dropped into the middle of Frankfurt, Germany. And about 150 German Chiefs fans at this event having the time of their lives. And I got to meet a bunch of them. So for one thing, this is a biography written about Patrick Mahomes. It was written by Daniel and Alex, and I had a chance to talk to Daniel quite a bit. Really cool guy. This book is in German, obviously. I'll loan this to you. You can work on your German a little bit.
Right.
But just really well done and really cool. And I asked for a copy. He, of course, signed it for me. Just really cool to look at this book. I mean, it goes with what I was saying, that like we know Patrick Mahomes, we know football, but this book is in German, and it just shows how global this game is becoming. So I told him I'm going to practice my German, which is right now at 0, by reading this book. So very cool stuff. I got this book. I also want to skip ahead here. This is one of the coolest things I've ever received from a fan. So this is from, I believe his name is Heiko or Heikel. He gave me this shirt. You're going to freak out. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Check out this shirt.
Frankfurt Galaxy World Bowl champions '99 go back to an earlier defending the kingdom, Matt Geht nach Deutschland, and we get into the World Bowl champions of '99, led by several former Chiefs.
So if you're just listening to this podcast, I'm holding up a T-shirt here from, like Mitch said, the Frankfurt Galaxy 1999 World Bowl champions. Like, this is the kind of stuff that if you saw it in like a vintage T-shirt shop, you'd be like, this is the coolest thing ever. So a Frankfurt Galaxy World Bowl Championship T-shirt. So very cool.
That's awesome.
And then also we went to these military bases. So we went to U.S. Army Garrison Wiesbaden, which is about 30 minutes to the west. Really amazing place. Met with a lot of service members. And then we also went to Ramstein Air Base, about an hour and a half to the southwest. It's almost in France. It is the largest U.S. community outside of the States. 50,000 U.S. citizens live in this area surrounding the base. And the town of Kaiserslautern is right there near Ramstein. And I have their American version newspaper here. Of course, I had the page pinned off, but we made the newspaper, which was the coolest thing, because we had like autograph signings at the BX, which is essentially a military shopping center on base, where the cheerleaders, because I was there with two cheerleaders, Cooper and Jordan, and then Dante and Casey Wolf, and we made the newspaper.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And the line was just out the door. It was amazing. It was so cool because this is a little bit different than the party in Frankfurt. These are American citizens, and a lot of them maybe aren't from Kansas City, but they love football. And to see Dante Hall and to see the Kansas City Chiefs, they're visiting them. All of a sudden, it's like, this is so cool. I got to go see these guys. But there's also a lot of Chiefs fans there. The entire line was red. People in jerseys from every era. Because so many people either were from the Kansas City area originally, or they had been stationed at Fort Riley or Fort Leavenworth or Fort Leonard Wood or Whiteman. They had spent time in the area and had caught the Chiefs fever, and they had some Chiefs gear. So many people were there, so excited to see the Chiefs were in town. Then also at Ramstein, we got to go out on the airfield, which there's these giant planes. I forget the names of them, but these giant planes that transport just about anything all over the world.
Like a C-130?
Oh, yeah, exactly. A whole bunch of planes like that.
Okay.
And we got these little waistbands. So these are like belts that you wear at night when you're out on the runway, because these runways are going 24/7. And if it's dark, you have to be seen, right? So these things say Mission Movers, the group that we met with on the airstrip, they were the people in charge of maintaining these planes and making sure if a wheel pops off or if there's some kind of issue, they can get it fixed in no time so that these planes can fly all over the world running their missions. So those are just a few of the many things I gathered. I also met this guy, James Vergot. We met him at the PX, because it's a post at in Wiesbaden as opposed to a BX, which is a base at Ramstein. This guy comes up to me and he says, "Do you know Cale Kirby?" And I was like, "Of course I know Cale Kirby." And if you watched last episode, Cale is, of course, on our equipment staff. He's the one that got us the Frankfurt Galaxy helmet. Apparently, according to James was Cale's boss at NFL Europe. What a small world, right? I'm like, of course I know
What's
Cale.
James doing now? Is he equipment manager for?
It says he is All-American Triple Crown, Department of Europe, veterans of foreign wars is his organization.
Okay,
and
so he's with VFW.
Based in the Wiesbaden area.
Wiesbaden.
Yeah.
That's
But
phenomenal.
that's
That's
just a
so
small
good.
taste.
That's
I mean,
awesome.
This was every day, just meeting these amazing people and just being on the other side of the world and feeling the energy and the hunger for Chiefs football. It was so cool, and it is something I'll never forget. So for everyone that I met over there, whether you were in Frankfurt or you were at those military bases, thank you so much for coming up and saying hi. It was a joy of my career to meet all of you.
That's so awesome, Matt. So glad you got to do it, and just the Kingdom can't wait to go see them, all of our fans, this fall on Funse, November. You know, the irony here is you talk about the C-130s. They train, and a lot of German pilots and crews train on the C-130 in St. Joseph, Missouri, at Rosecrans, the Air Guard base there, and they'll fly over the field a lot during training camp. And then if you stay at, I don't know, any of the hotels in St. Joseph, but Stony Creek, I know my family will come visit during camp and we'll stay there. There'll be a lot of German air folk there because they're training in St. Joseph. So it's just neat to see that kind of conduit back and forth that we talk about between the two countries.
Yeah, so cool. And what's amazing about the U.S. presence in Germany from a military perspective is it's really our hub of European and African operations. And it's not just the U.S., it's also NATO. So there were people from all these different countries who are serving their country and serving NATO that we had a chance to meet and get to know a little bit and just see what they're doing. And again, to provide them a distraction, I guess, from just the everyday grind of being a service member. We also got to go to a place called the USO Warrior Center, and that was at Ramstein Air Force Base. And essentially think of that as a Ronald McDonald House kind of place for soldiers and airmen who are injured, where they can go into this area and they can play video games or they can learn a new skill. They can be taken care of, and they're not just sitting in a hospital thinking about what's going on with them. And it was just amazing to meet these people because they're not just people that were injured or who are sick in Germany. I met a guy who got hurt in Kuwait like 3 days prior and gets flown there. So just an amazing group of people. It was every day we met so many different kinds of groups. It was soldiers who were maybe it was their first day in the armed service, or it was individuals who were injured recently and were just trying to get back up on their feet. And that was just the military members. Also, of course, all the wonderful German fans we met were incredible as well. So I was only there for 5 days. I feel like I didn't sleep at all, but that was okay. I was never tired because we were having so much fun. And it was, once again, just one of the honors of my career to be able to go over to Germany and to do all of this. It was amazing.
Ramstein is so important. It saves so many lives. If you go back to Desert Shield, Desert Storm, you think about the war in Afghanistan, so many times they were taken to Ramstein if they were wounded seriously or had gone through some difficult circumstances, and Ramstein was the place that really saved their life. That place is so important, and not only to the United States, but to the NATO forces. So awesome. Quickly, the food, good?
So I like German food. I
Yeah.
ate a lot of schnitzel.
Schnitzel? Okay.
Yeah, I drink some German
sehr
beer.
gut.
Yeah, it's not for everyone, right? But if you can find a good German restaurant in Germany, like you got to do it, right? And I thought it was really good. For those of you that are going over to Frankfurt, one thing to know, I mean, us in America, we think of all of Germany as things like schnitzel and dark beer and all this stuff, right? And like the Hofbrauhaus. That's Bavaria. That's Munich, which is about 3 hours away. Frankfurt is known for its apple wine. It's a big thing in Frankfurt. It's everywhere. It's essentially like a cider. But I tried it because that is my duty as an American trying to learn about this area.
Thumbs up?
Thumbs up. It was very good.
Double thumbs
If
up.
you go to Frankfurt, try the apple wine. But Frankfurt,
Fantastic.
it's an awesome place, a really cool experience. And if you're wondering what's it going to be like, the Chiefs are playing over there and it's a home game. If my experience was any indication, it's going to be a wild atmosphere in favor of the Chiefs.
Euros? You had your Euros?
Got my Euros. Yep,
Okay.
got my Euros.
Exchange back, or you just save them for when we go in November?
Thankfully I exchanged everything back. I'm good for now, but I'll have to get re-upped when we go back in November. I'm going to show you around. I can't wait. It's gonna be fun. I have my
show me all the
spots
sites,
now.
man.
I know where to
man.
go. Yeah.
Good job on the recon. It's so awesome, man. You got to go and what you did on that trip there. Fantastic job. We're going to close out this edition of Defending the Kingdom with just an OTA update, right? We know how important OTAs are to this franchise in specific. And one of the reasons Andy Reid has won for 10 consecutive years, 10 straight winning seasons. Go through them all again. 5 straight AFC championship games never happened, hosted by a team since 1921 in this league. To have 7 straight division titles. Everybody wants to kind of capture the secret sauce. Well, part of that is, and one impression is we've watched the OTAs now over the last several weeks, and next week will be mandatory minicamp for the franchise and the guys, kind of the last push before training camp, is in the way that the Chiefs approach OTAs, the tempo in which it is done. It really feels like a training camp tempo for other teams that the Chiefs do during OTAs. They get so much accomplished. And I just saw Travis Kelce. I just said, dude, you're amazing the way you work in OTAs, because it's as if you're trying to make the team, but that permeates throughout this entire team. They get so much done on both sides of the ball. And when we watch it, we're amazed at how much is put into the hopper to get ready for training camp, to get ready for the season.
It's incredible. And just in case you haven't listened to our previous OTA episodes, what are OTAs? Well, basically, this is week 3 of OTAs. There was OTAs the week prior and the week before that. You get like 10 of these practice days where you can essentially do 7-on-7 and 11-on-11 drills. No live contact, no pads, but it's almost real football. It's kind of like flag football in a way. You couldn't do any of this previously because the NFLPA and the NFL have agreed to this collective bargaining agreement where there's essentially no real football practices that are taking place before this time, which began in mid-May. It's only like individual stuff, positional drills. But this time is so important because you can finally go out there and play quasi-real football, and the best teams take advantage of this time. Use it because then it will be poof. It will be gone. These don't roll over to next season. And the Chiefs are so good at using this time to install as much information as they possibly can to build the muscle memory when they can, so that when they get to training camp, they can hit the ground running. So many teams across the NFL get to training camp, and that is day 1. And for the Chiefs, it's like day 15.
Yeah.
And that's why the Chiefs win every single year, because they maximize this time, and they've been maximizing it out there over these 3 weeks.
And not just the install, but it's also the teaching, individual teaching as a group with either one side of the ball, offense or defense. A lot of special teams work, I'm almost guessing the Chiefs do more special teams work in OTAs than other teams in the National Football League, maybe any other team. But then also individual teaching that happens during OTAs. But it's fascinating to watch. It gets us ready for training camp and getting an understanding, too, of the roster for you and me, because the roster always has a ton of turnover. Okay, the thing that I would want to bring up now, let's just talk about defense first, because offensively is kind of always where we start. But let's talk about the defensive side and what I've noticed. And to me, it is the overall depth. I don't want to bring out hyperbole here, because I think this isn't going too far over my skis, but this might be the best defensive depth the Chiefs have had in the 11 seasons with Andy Reid. We have seen, and I'll get into the UDFAs in a second, but we have seen increased depth, especially at linebacker in the secondary, that really shows up over the last couple of weeks.
I'm so excited about the depth that we have on defense this year, because they have to go out and do it, but I think this has a great chance to be maybe the best defense that we've had in the Patrick Mahomes era. They got to go do it, but at least right now in June, that's my hope. Just looking at what we're seeing. And the defensive back room is something I'm very excited about, because you think about how these guys came in here last year, the 5 DBs that were drafted, and all of them played a role that led to a Super Bowl championship. And I asked Steve Spagnuolo a few days ago, how do you feel they are now versus where they were at this point last year? And he said they are light years ahead. And think about how those guys were good last season. They came right in and they made plays, and all of a sudden guys like Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, Joshua Williams, Brian Cook, and Najee Johnson, don't forget about Najee. Those guys are light years ahead right now from where they were this time a year ago. I expect all those guys to take a big step forward this upcoming season. And Justin Reed's also part of that. Spags also make sure to include him because, yeah, Justin Reed's a veteran in this league, but last year was his first year in the system. Well, this is his second year. He feels way more comfortable, and I just feel really good about this DB room. And Najee, in particular, just has really caught my eye, and the open practices that we're allowed to watch has just been making plays out there, whether they be PBUs or just being in the right place at the right time. Najee Johnson is someone who I'm very excited to watch here in training camp.
Yeah, I kind of got lost in the shuffle last year with you mentioned the other guys, but also special teams. He could become a really, really good special teams player for this Chiefs defense. Also look at the draft picks and what they've already done. It's been a little bit slower start for Felix Anudike-Uzomah because he was injured in the Sugar Bowl against Alabama, and he's playing for K-State. But I see B.J. Thompson, I see Chamari Connor, Nick Jones, the 7th-round pick out of Ball State will be interesting to watch at camp. The other part is, before we transition to offense here, is our OTA update, is the undrafted free agents. I know we touched on it in a previous episode, but these guys have followed it up. Linebackers like Isaiah Moore or Cam Jones. And then Boydo, the kid from K-State who wasn't even drafted. Not even drafted. He wasn't even a UDFA. He tried out And now all of a sudden it's like he could have been drafted, right? He just has kind of morphed into everybody else. It's not some guy sticking out, oh, he's the tryout guy. But these undrafted free agents on defense are a big part, I think, of helping what could be the deepest defensive team going into training camp.
So when you're following the Chiefs in minicamp, which is next week, and then throughout training camp, and you hear names like Iko Boydo at corner, or Truman Jones at defensive end, or Cam Jones at linebacker, sure, it might be a long shot for guys like that to make the team. But the way the practice squad works nowadays is if those guys end up on the practice squad, they could be up on the roster in week 2. Look at Jack Cochran from last year. I always mention Jack. But Jack did not make the team out of training camp, but then went on to appear in 15 games for the Chiefs. So I look at this undrafted free agent class and these defensive players, and sure, you're looking at roster math. You're like, I don't know, is there enough room for these guys? That doesn't always matter, because I guarantee you one of these UDFAs at some point is going to make a play for the Chiefs that helps Kansas City win a game.
Roster math this year could be like series and differential equations. Let's go to the offensive side here as we close out this podcast. And to me, what has been, I guess, a surprise over watching the OTAs over the last several weeks has been backup quarterback Blaine Gabbert. I know you saw him at Mizzou. Chiefs Kingdom fans are familiar with him. When I look at what he's done, 67 games with 48 starts in his career, then I look back, he has had touchdown passes of 74, 80, 67, 75, 52, and 71. That's 6 touchdown passes of 52 yards or more. And now I see why. Footwork, hand placement, his ability to get the ball out fast. Don't want to compare him to Chad Henne here, because Chad just led the Chiefs on a 98-yard drive to win a divisional playoff game. But to me, I was surprisingly pleased by the ability of Blaine Gabbert as a backup quarterback.
We just need to ask Blaine, are you ready to lead a crucial drive or make a gigantic play in the divisional round of the playoffs? Because that's Chad Henne's legacy in Kansas City. It's not just against the Jags. It's also against the Browns a few years ago, throwing the ball on 4th down when the Chiefs are only up by 4 late in the game. Chad Henne was such a luxury for the Chiefs, because we always knew if Patrick Mahomes, God forbid, got hurt, you have faith that Chad can come in and he can run the offense. He's a veteran. He's been around. He knows what he's doing. And at least so far, watching Blaine Gabbert, he's also that guy. And keep in mind, he just spent, I think, 3 or 4 years with Tom Brady.
Yeah,
I mean, who better to learn from just to see how you go about your business? And Blaine's been around a long time. He's back in Missouri, where he's originally from, and has a chance to back up Patrick Mahomes. Hopefully he never has to play. But if he does, based on what we've seen, we have faith that he can go in there, at least as of this moment, and help the Chiefs win.
Also excited about what I've seen in the depth at offensive line and tight end. I know you're going to ask about wide receiver. Every day, people talk about wide receiver.
I've got notes on wide receivers.
Let's talk about it a little bit, but I think here the byword is going to be patience. Everybody wants some definitive answer right now in OTAs with the wide receivers. And I do think, because there's a bunch of folks to talk about here, is just let this one flow. There's nothing here on the middle of June that we're going to say this is definitive and this is definitive. It's going to be a flow that goes into training camp. But there has been enough when you see plays like and Rashee Rice, and they put a lot on his plate. Sky Moore looks like he's taking that year 1 to year 2 jump. But then there's a bunch of other guys. I mean, there's like 11 wide receivers on this roster right now. But to say, hey, this, and this, and this, to be definitive at this point would be premature.
Absolutely. Now, what you look for in these practices is growth. Are guys making the same mistake twice, or do they learn from that previous mistake? Are guys coming out here and just gradually improving? And for the young guys, that truly is the name of the game. And Rashee Rice, I think I saw that between week 1 and week 2. So the way this works is the Chiefs have like 3 or 4 OTA practices every week, but only one is open to the media. So we get to watch that one practice each week. So it's a small sample size, but Rashee, from that first practice to his second practice last week, just looked like he really was improving to me. He's so twitchy in the open field. And what do I mean by that? He can go any which direction. He's so quick. And Brett Veach talked about how they loved that skill set that he had when he was at SMU. I'm seeing that here on the practice fields. He also made a great catch in the back of the end zone during an offensive red zone install period. Just high pointed the ball, got both feet down. Just an excellent play in the red zone. That was really impressive. But Sky Moore, you mentioned him. He has also looked really good throughout this camp, I think. And they continue to throw a lot at him, but he just looks like he is a confident player who knows that he belongs And that's where his performance in the AFC title game and in the Super Bowl is so important, because I think that carries over now into this season. And how he can attack this season, because he knows he belongs. He can make big plays in the biggest of moments. And I really think we're seeing that so far in this camp. He had a great catch last week where it was in traffic. He was over the middle, and he was a vacuum. He caught it and then made a big play. So Sky is someone else who I'm very excited for.
I am too. And I just talked to him a little bit ago, and it's not even like you're talking to the same guy. And I like the fact that you brought up that punt return against Cincinnati to help win the AFC Championship, and then his touchdown, the first ever of his NFL life in Super Bowl 57, just feels like it's made him a different person. So we'll just close out here to UDFAs. We kind of alluded to this. I kind of put it out on Twitter a little bit, but Deneric Prince is a guy, a running back out of Tulsa, that has got our attention here during OTAs. And then Nico Remigio, who is I put him down as a UTH, and people on Twitter is like, well, what's UTH? I put it down as utility. And the fact that this is a guy that can do a lot of stuff. We've seen him move around, but he'll be fun to watch at training camp. But those are two UDFAs that I think deserve mention.
And for those guys, sure, maybe they can contribute on offense, but think about like the kick return game. We talked to Coach Tobe about this a few days ago. With Isaiah Pacheco taking on a larger role on offense, presumably, it's unlikely he's going to be the primary kick return man. And Coach Tobe said as much just a few days ago, mentioning that it's very likely that we see some new faces back there. And that creates opportunities for guys like Remigio and Deneric Prince. And we've kind of joked about this, and Coach Tobe even said it. Deneric Prince is like a Niall Davis clone. They look the exact same.
He's wearing 34. He looks just like he's come back in another body.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
So he could, long way to go here, but if he has a shot to make this team and be the primary kickoff return man, he's got to earn that responsibility, but there is an avenue for him to do that. So just another reminder that even if guys aren't drafted, it doesn't matter. Like when you get to this camp, you're truly given every opportunity to find success and to make this team. And this was a really solid undrafted free agent class for the Chiefs. We were saying it every time we've had a chance to watch practice that there's some players I think that would have been drafted in previous years that are in our camp as UDFAs.
So we'll close this way. Next week we'll have mandatory minicamp, and we'll do an update after that, which kind of closes out summer school.
And that's all open, so we can really talk about it.
Yeah, we can let her fly. But we also want to close with the way we began, and in a proper tribute for all of the Chiefs Kingdom all around the world, that we lost the forever queen of the Chiefs Kingdom. So prayers go out for comfort for the Hunt family, but also just thanking and being very thankful with a lot of gratitude for a remarkable life of Norma Hunt. He's Matt McMullen. I'm Mitch Holthus. We'll give you next week an update on mandatory minicamp, but we'll do so remembering the forever queen of the Chiefs Kingdom.
10, 5, touchdown! Lock it down! And the celebration begins in our